Hi, I'm Daniel Anderson, and I have been trying to get across a kind of a building method that I came up with that a lot of people think would be impossible. But when I kind of discovered what my building principle ended up being for an architect kind of theory, is that everything we've built in the past is completely wrong. And the reason being is we've used materials that are unsustainable, and we've used methods that are unsustainable on purpose to trap people into things. And people are really looking into off-grid technology and off-grid future. And what I've done is created a scientific building theorem based off of the molecular structures of anything, and the human cell, or any cellular thing, is a circle. And so what I've really done is figured out how to encapsulate all the energy of one building by turning it into a self-contained organism-like structure that is built off of similar parts, similar to what Henry Ford originally did, but with houses, so that you could have, say you had 24 walls in a circle that were arranged in a circle. I don't know if that's 24, but the point is you can see that if you arrange off of one trailer, say your wheels are right here, off of one trailer you can have 3 floor sections that expand out to be held off the ground by jacks. I'm going to skip that up. And the reason being is that even if you did this in, say this was, that'd be probably like a 12-foot circle off of a standard sized trailer, is the reason being is if you made similar objects or similar shapes, they all fit together. And if each one of these panels was made out of bamboo structure, kind of like a car door with gaskets, and they all fit together and they all plug in together to make the electrical grid of its own nature, and that when you stack all these walls together, it just makes a nice compact circle, and that the floor is compressed together and pegged together at points, and that everything all the way around, all these walls are arranged in a way that they're all connected to the floor itself, so that when you take the tension, going back to cellular organisms, is they all have a tension ring of something stronger than the thing itself. And so even with bamboo and hemp walls, or things that are really economic and sustainable, by having a sheath around this building of metal, just solid single gauge metal all the way around, you create a common bond of all sides. So you really wouldn't have any of the weatherproofing issues, and you could have plenty of style depending on how you would want to stamp out each one of these walls, because each one of these walls could be stamped out similar to like a car door. Like I said, like you could integrate any system and any electronics and any lighting system and anything you wanted, all in a patterned size so that when you went to build it, it didn't matter which wall you put anywhere. If you wanted your windows over here because there was a good view this way and you wanted to look this way, you can move that and turn it around in any which way. And the only thing that really holds any of this back, once you put, because you can have a door, say right here, and then you would have a brace, but at any given time the tension would always go across and all the way around the building to make a barrel building that could be built anywhere. And then you take the same concept and you make similar shapes to attach and be formed at the middle to make a teepee of individual alike shapes. But all of these roof panels would and should have some sort of solar device to get energy for either water or for anything that you would need, and it could all be plugged in together at its seams to be run into your solar generators. And when it comes down to water, the thing about trailers is you can design tanks to go over the axles quite well. And so when it comes down to it, you can have really just a single port and you would have all of the water you'd need, just like an RV. But the thing that you would be building with these tension cable systemed buildings that build like Legos is you're getting form and function all at once, really. That's my kind of common goal, is a semi-nomadic modern house. And I know it looks like just a mess, but if you had 3 sections of a floor system, say these stacked off of the original rectangle, but you had a place for 24 walls or 48 walls or any given set, and it all pinched together because of tension cable systems that made it a structural barrel within itself, using the geometry and the symmetry of a cell and making a half circled house really on top of the earth as a dome. Kind of resembles what you can do with the least amount of materials. As for structure, and the whole thing can go back down and stack into what would be the easiest to haul, or what would cut through the wind the best. And see, since this is, you have all this room underneath, you can relatively store anything you would need to. But the trick of the whole thing is having these triangles come up to the center. Just like a standard yurt, there's companies that prefabricate whole houses with these same ideas and patterns that are much cheaper and more economic to make. But I thought about it as if you wouldn't need to have it be permanently built. It would be semi-nomadic. It would disassemble and then reassemble. And so if you take the center of the building, once you stack these roof pieces up, which would join together, all these things could be built generally on the fly. And the reason why I put it together this way in AutoCAD systems, and I don't really want to get out my AutoCAD drawings, but because you have to really understand the concept of what this is resembling, is when you encapsulate all the energy of the building in a circular fashion that has no faults. It's all just one single chain of energy pinching together with all these walls. And then you have the same energy pinched down and having pegged all these triangle panels integrated with solar and all the systems that you would need, all pre-lit and LED, all of the systems that we have that are so much more efficient, just all fused together at once. And then with one single cable at the center at a height, like a 10 and 12 pitch, if I were to pull this out, once you take the energy pushing upwards and in and take it and tension it down to the center of the trailer, and you have this all blocked off, you have a building that relatively could float in the ocean and wouldn't break apart. It basically makes itself into a geometric pattern that's unbreakable because you're relying on the strongest material for all the energy to stay together. And because you have steel cables of any given size, depending on the size of materials, depending on the square footage, it's as long as you build within the same pattern, no matter if it's a tent or if it's something that's made of solid steel beams, this design and pattern of a tensioned building that can be assembled and disassembled really is a concept nobody's ever fulfilled. And to have it be capable of being such an open floor plan off of nothing, and having the capability we have of mass production, you can make several different models and sizes to fulfill any given family anywhere in the world, from people that live in jungles to people that live in Alaska. And because of the design and the variances of what it can be built out of, is not really, it rivals the standard building method of 2x4s and 16 inches on center and 14 on center, stuff like that. This is what it's challenging, is that technically speaking, that is the worst way to build. If you go to a store or a building, and like a building place or like a home builder, and you go to ask for them to build a home, what they're building you is a pile of shit. Because if you really think about what you can achieve by buying a mundane amount of steel, and that you don't have to have your home in one place at any given time, and that if there's a natural disaster, or if there's a forest fire or a tsunami or anything, you technically have all the modern function and all the hard wall, huge feel that you could get out of any building method, but it can be disassembled rather easily and safely. And I thought about the specifications of having it on wheels and having basically a Lego kit system to build a home out of nothing, and that you really could build a good sized house for about 3 or 4 people for less than $10,000. And with the solar panel capabilities that we have today, and the solar generator capabilities and the innovations people have come up with for really living off the grid, it's going to come to a standstill legally, I believe, at some point, whether or not I could in fact give this design away. So I'm just going to give it away. Like, that was my kind of point, was that before I was trying to sell this, and I entrenched in standstills with design companies, really over the principles of what I was trying to accomplish. And I'm trying to accomplish something that's not really possible or heard of in this world, and that's creating a business that doesn't exist. Because off-grid home corporations don't exist. It's not exactly something written into our code of ethics yet that poor people should be poor and okay, and no, they don't have to feel poorly about it, because really what this is kind of my vision with a building that could be built like a cellular organism that could just pop out of nothing, and people could pack their stuff in a nice, neat order and just keep moving and live with the land and on the land, and that you could have hostels set up within society on their land so that they could stand the profit and profit from rent, rather than us paying into a system of social securities that really don't help anybody, that this is an actual physical object of social security, that people could live out in the woods and leave zero footprint, like they could actually take care of nature like we want them to, and part of their civic duty then would be to plant trees or do civic things to in the environment. And that's really the problem with what I've created as an idea, not as a building concept, as the idea of people living off grid in a semi-nomadic fashion. People assume that off-grid means you're not contributing anything to society, when in fact it's the exact opposite, because people that live off-grid are very conscious of the environment and what they're doing, and usually take so much more time to care for it than the people living in society that seem to just want to care for themselves. And the reason why I presented this, or I am trying to present this to Native Americans, is because of a kind of a dream that modern and the European fashion of industrialization, having systems and simplifying systems to its most elite form of, this is like a cellular building theorem, or a cellular living, kind of like having a cell phone that encapsulates all the information you want to get kind of from the world. This is a cellular building theorem, would mean that it would have all the things that would encapsulate your life and all the things that you would need at home within something that is collapsible or is compactable to a different kind of technology, basically. And that's really the difference between this and a lot of other off-grid designers. Is a lot of off-grid designers right now, what they're trying to do is make a trailer that expands into a bigger rectangle, or to a box of some sort of transforming ability. But really what I've done is just thrown that all away and made it into a kit model where you have individual panels that any individual person can handle. Like any individual person can build a home in a single sitting of really not that much effort. And with a single wrench, you can tension the whole thing together all the way around, and then from the center down, to make a full like donut shape that all pinches together. And really, that shape as a building, as big as it could be or as small as it could be, if it was made of canvas and wax, or if it was made of concrete and steel, the design still stands the same as the best, because you're relying on the strongest methods we have today, and that is pulling things rather than relying on the compression and pinning things together with nails. And so, in short, the Bhakra, or really what I wanted to say by saying Bhakra, or the Bhakra house design, is that it's like a flower, because it has its individual petals. All of these walls are petals that end up making a flower house. That all these individual petals of technology infused building panels that are like basically the same thing as what you would do with Legos, is you would have ways that they would stack together and fit together, in a certain pattern. And by doing that with the actual home that a person would potentially live in, they can pack it onto wheels, which kind of decentralizes the whole building code method of oppression against people that are told that have to be connected to the ground and be forced to be on the grid completely. Is that as long as you can pack it and move it, and as long as it's on wheels, these houses can be rented and are open for business to anybody to use for any real enterprise that they could think of for less than you would get a quote for. Like if you went to go get per square foot, this would be the most economic model, depending on the materials you used and how big you wanted it, because of it resembling the scientific basis of human life and really the universe, and that is the torus, that donut shape of sustaining energy in a circular flow that you'll see. That's really when you see like tornadoes or hurricanes, you're seeing the center of it, which that's resembled by that cable in the center, and that all just pulls and pushes all into itself. And if you could take this house for $10,000 as a mass-produced living solution for the Syrian refugee crisis, there's economic crisis around the world, that you could give them a life-preserving method of being off the streets for about the price of a car, that would give them enough to keep going. Because right now in the world there's a lot of people that reach a point where they can't really keep going, and this could help, basically, if people will realize that you could build a house using similar sized objects or similar sized 4x8 panels. You wouldn't even need to cut the plywood. You wouldn't need to cut any of the standard size building materials you would ever need. And that's what really got me going the most, is if you built individual panels of 4x8, like you would go to the hardware store, go anywhere, go to Home Depot, go to wherever, and you go get a piece of plywood, it's 4x8. You go get a piece of lumber, it's going to be about 8 feet, 10 feet, 16 feet, 20 feet. You have a standard size, but we are kind of ridiculous to keep cutting them the way we do and not using them. And so by building like this in a circular fashion, you're only ever taking angles off of things and to make them pinch together in a certain fashion. And so you can have a 4x8 wall that you can handle by yourself, and you would stack it on, and you can make that out of 2x3 or anything. And because you're in a circular building with relatively little for heating, you can heat it because it keeps heat better than a square or two-story buildings. And also this could be a two-story building. You could make this tall enough to make a teepee, loft, depending on how big you'd want it and how much you want to spend. But as a formula for building, this is the most economic I have ever thought of or ever seen anywhere. And I basically could prove that to the world, that how people build a building is incorrect completely to what you could be building around the world. And having people that are mobile and more connected with the earth really could be the key to a future environment of people being really good to the planet, and having a house that didn't require the funding of dirty energy, that didn't require the funding of all these grid energy systems that really should be preserved. The people that have the money from that, and it would shift into more technological based advances instead of these energy fuel burning advances in the economic structure of the world. And that's really what's happening, is there's a war between the people with all the money that want to keep selling at a higher rate, when really what we're trying to tell the people with the money selling all the energy and all the big energy corporations is that if you shift the balance is still going to stay the same. When you have people that are going to be building more things and they have new ideas of how to save, it's kind of the funniest model. It's like the Toyota Prius. The relative hilarity of the Toyota Prius is that for $40,000 you're trying to save the planet by producing a car that in the manufacturing process produces more than that car would ever save you in gas or money, because you already spent $40,000 more dollars. And see, like, I don't know the real pricing or but the hilarity is that people spend more money trying to save the planet than the things that actually save the planet. And that would be investing into a lifestyle that actually could save the planet. And a lot of people think that people go off grid and they're hobos or they're homeless. And the people on Native American reservations that I've met some Native American people, and they really would love a lifestyle that they could just go and be like they're supposed to be. Like you're supposed to be. Like you're supposed to live out in the world and not be a slave to a society that entrenched you in what they wanted. And really, by living like this and simplifying everything into a kit house economic structure that you could raise 3 kids in just fine, that you could have all your kitchen systems, all anything really safely, and there would be room for people to not be homeless. I don't know when we came to a place in society that we couldn't figure out a solution for the homeless people in the world and just let them be poor and okay, but also feel like they have a purpose if they want to stay that way. Because there needs to be a solution for people that don't feel like they have any purpose, because that's really what a homeless person is they don't feel like they have any purpose or that they're going to really make it. And so in general they end up just scraping by and saying fuck it half the time, and you know it. And so the thing that really got me when I started going in 3D design with these yurt patterns and these blending of Inuit design and modern interior design and exterior design, I made something that potentially could be the HGTV dream home and RV world dream home and anything that anybody would ever want. And with the funding of other people, you potentially could fund the building of one of these houses that was capable of all this, with all the economic advancements we've made to home improvement and living off grid and having solar technology at the point it is today. You really could afford for very little to change a family's life around the world, and I can't figure out a way to sell it. So that's basically what happened. Is I ended up making something that I could kind of scribble out and draw and tell people about, that if you built a house in a circle with a teepee and a barrel design, that you could pinch it all together, and it could be strong enough to float in the ocean, and it could be strong enough to do all these things, and then it could be collapsed down and fit all of your furniture, all of your lifestyle. You could have LED projector screens in it for really nothing, because technology is becoming so cheap. And there's ways to get water out of the air that are amazing. There's so many advancements in the world, but we're not encapsulating any of them. And that's really what I wanted to do by giving this to Native American Council, is basically say sorry for being a corporatocracy fascist nation. I mean, this could set people free that don't want the mansions, that don't want the Bugattis and the expensive cars and the things that society pushes people to buy and buy more. For the people that just want to be okay, this could really mean something. And for the people that, have been on reservations, that have to, people up in Alaska that have had to be in these small structures because of the elements and what's really available for transportation and how easy it is to build up there. If you had a house that you could pack down and have so ready to build and put together, it could really change a lot of things, because if you can set that up in a quick fashion in a blizzard, or in a quick fashion in a monsoon, or in a quick fashion anywhere, you can really have the power to give people the tool to save their family from any situation, from any global struggle to come, or any real wave to come. If we built more alike to the structure of the world, the more alike we are to that, the more efficient we are in every which way. And even when you look at the sound hole in the guitar, everything circular has a definite pattern that helps. It helps things to have things in circular patterns, because as a structure, it's just the most efficient design you can make. And what people have never really figured out is how to build like that from Europe. People from Europe had no idea really of these designs. Inuits had these circular patterns, and people from Mongolia had these circular patterns, and they had these ways of rolling with the time and being nomadic about it, and never really owning property or owning a specific point of land, because you're afraid somebody was going to attack you and you had to have some sort of fortress or stronghold. But if you had something that could be one if you needed it to be, but also if things got bad, you could pack up and leave and look for work still. Like, you didn't have to lose money just because of the economic situation in the world. You could pack your family up and go somewhere else for a while, and you'd be okay, and you'd be able to provide them a life that was safe, happy, and sustainable for nothing, because of the systems you have packed on the trailer. And I get talking about this and people think I'm kind of a nut, but the truth is yeah, I am a nut. This is a really, really good idea. I just have a hard time explaining it, because it's bigger than just, like, I made a plastic rack to cook some bacon on, and I wanted to go to help them press out a plastic rack that cuts bacon in the microwave. This is a whole building scientific method that nobody's ever really done, and this is similar to what things people would discover in the times of ancient Rome with aqueducts and different patterns, is that they discovered certain technologies of how to live better, and this is one of them that's never really been touched on, is how to build a shelter that is completely modern and has all the luxury of home with nothing, just relatively nothing for materials, as simple as it can get, as structural it can get, for nothing, and being as light as possible, and being so light even that if you made it a certain size or a certain type, people could build tree houses out of these, or could build ocean dwelling houses or water dwelling houses, and they could be anchored together rather easily because of the design and because of how structurally sound it is. And that's really what I wanted to give, and I think that's really all I have to say about it. I wish I could draw it better, but that's really all I was trying to say by it. Is that's, yeah, it's just a big old pack of walls and roof panels built like car. It's built like a car. It's taking the power and putting it into the house, kind of like people thought about when they saw horses and wagons. They saw power and wheels, and they wanted to put the power in the wheels. And so what I've done is put the power in the wheels in the house. And so you have a powered wheel house that's on, you have a wheel, you have a house that's on wheels that has all the power and all the size that you would ever need, and can pack all the furniture and all the lifestyle that you would ever need. And it would be really comfortable no matter the size you needed, and all within anybody's price range, because it's the most efficient method of building to date. And if you're interested in it, let me know. If I could figure out to shut off my computer. Alright. Oh, it's because there's a cable on it. Alright. That is the Bhakra building method. If you like, subscribe, message me. Anybody from the Native American Council, feel free to message me about it. I think it could really help a lot of people around the world if they just knew how to build the best they could build, or the best that could be built on this planet. And that's basically what this is. Like I said, like, subscribe, or send me a message.